Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome, welcome to this week's Duchêne Method Live. If you're here and you want to say hello, please say hello in the comments. It's always awesome to know who's here with me. And so that we can share, we can say hello. This is a communal space where we get to engage with one another. You can ask questions, you can write comments. I want to encourage you to practice the art of mindful communication. I want to invite you into this circle of, I call it the sacred circle of creation. And the reason I say that is because I have found over the years that being in circles like these really helps us to expand our mind, learn how to better communicate, also learn how to better communicate our emotions. And we do that by identifying how we're feeling in the moment, because someone might write something in the comments that might trigger us, or that might invite a deeper sense of internal processing, to be curious. So I invite you here to be curious, to open your minds, and to please share and connect as you come in. Hello, good morning. Christina is here. How nice to have you here. Welcome. You made it. You made it. You figured it out. I love that. Awesome. All right, my friends. So without any further ado, I have a pretty packed class for you today. So first of all, welcome to this week's Duchêne Method live stream. This is where I attempt to demystify the mind-body connection for you to achieve optimal health, and so that you might use these tools in your own life. Every week, as I said, I invite you into our sacred circle of creation, our sacred circle of connection, and we support one another into acknowledging through this live. I encourage you to communicate with me and others by acknowledging, by engaging, and also by supporting. And this is the baseline. This is my 3-step proprietary system that I have found to be the underlying process to having a really successful exchange with people. And also throughout my career as a structural integrator and somatic therapist, I have found that acknowledgement, engagement, and support have been a 3-step system that has really worked effectively for me. And I've developed it over the years, and I come here and I share it with you. So this is a platform where we get to share all things mind-body alignment. And so today we're going to dive into the topic of freedom of movement versus fearing pain. Freedom of movement versus fearing pain. And whether, we're going to ask the question, whether the effort required to achieve the former, freedom of movement, is actually worth it. Last week, if you were here, we had a beautiful guest with us, Henry Velandia, who is a Duchêne Method coach and who will be with us in the 4-month coaching program, September 6th through December 20th. Look out for that. That'll be posted on social media and everywhere very soon. So he and I invited you last week into exploring simple physical exercises that you get to do on a daily basis. And these are specifically designed. These are very simple exercises that help to hydrate your fascia, hydrate your connective tissue. This is foundationally the basis of all of my work as a structural integration practitioner. We are really there to assist in creating space and opening up your bodies through hydrating fascia. Also, the exercises we shared last week was to assist you in releasing daily tension. Really simple, mindful exercises to assist you to release daily tension. We all have some. If you're sitting at a desk at any time during the day, if you're working, if you're a practitioner and you work on people's bodies, if you're a coach, if you're a mom, you are always having some daily tensions in our bodies. They show up. And finally, last week, we did this to help you promote a feeling of well-being in your body and mind. So again, many thanks to Henry. He taught us his sexy turtle exercises, which was a lot of fun and inspired a different way of movement, but rather not so much a different way of movement, but I'll say a different way of looking at how we can move. Because a lot of these exercises, if you look at mindful exercises, if you look at somatic exercises, a lot of them are very similar. We are all based in this easy way of moving. The distinction is the lens through which we view these exercises. And Henry had his sexy turtle for us last week. So thanks, Henry, for being here. And if you missed last week's class, you can find it on my YouTube channel right here under Releasing Trauma Through Movement. That was the title of that video. So let me see. Anybody else check in this morning? Good morning. Good morning. Hello. Welcome. Please say hello in the chat if you're here so that I can know that you are here and we can interact with more gusto, more energy. It's fun when we get to interact with one another. Okay, so today I want to dive into another type of movement. I'd like to invite you into exploring emotional movement, what it is, and how to view our emotions as living, moving parts of our human experience. Emotional movement is the process of acknowledging, engaging, and supporting our emotions, and when it's appropriate, to support other people's emotions, our clients, our families, our friends. And you'll notice that I use the 3-step proprietary system to acknowledge, engage, and support through emotional movement, because that is what I have found to be super effective when working either with my clients, but also just myself in my daily life, learning how to process emotion in a much more natural, unclinical manner. And we do that through this 3-step system. So emotional movement in a nutshell, it's a way of processing and responding to our emotional experiences in a healthy, sober, and constructive manner. And emotional movement is manifested in this context in the following ways. So first, I talked to you about acknowledgement. So I would say that in the way that I'm sharing this information with you today, this is the first step. The first step in emotional movement is to acknowledge our emotions. And you have probably heard this many times before. Today, as I share a little bit more around this concept, see if you can actually be in present awareness and notice how you are feeling as I am sharing this information, because emotions will arise, and it could be good emotions. Obviously, it's not always about fear and anxiety. It could be about relatability. You're feeling, oh yeah, I can really get into this. That's an emotional, actually relatability is an emotion of safety. So I'm working here with you today to create a relationship of safety through the content that I'm sharing based on my years of experience as a practitioner. So everything I'm inviting you into is experiential. See if you might be able to experience, pay attention in the moment to what arises as you are intaking this information, and perhaps as you are sharing information in the chat and communicating with one another. So acknowledgement, right? We're moving into this first step of emotional movement. when we are in acknowledgement of our emotions, that means that we're being aware of what we're feeling and also accepting those feelings without judgment. That tends to be a tricky one because acknowledgement means that we recognize and name our emotions rather than suppressing or denying them. This is foundationally important. When we acknowledge our emotions, we allow ourselves to experience experientialism, to experience them fully. And of course, this helps us process and move through them or allow them to move through us. This mind-body alignment work is all about using this magnificent laboratory, which is our body, to process emotion. So the first thing we do in order to recognize that emotion is moving is acknowledgement. And that is done through pausing. I've spoken about this many times. And we just bring ourselves to center. Bringing ourselves to center is also neutrality. You come into a space of neutrality, which means that you can identify what's whirling around you emotionally. If you have strong emotions, you want to practice getting into a space of neutrality so that you are not overtaken by your emotions. And that's all part of the acknowledgement phase. Got it. I'm acknowledging that I'm feeling this or that. And what this does is that it prevents you from being taken over by your emotions. Make sense? Give me a thumbs up or a yes if this is making sense. Hey, good morning. Savi is here. Lovely to have you. Good morning. Liane is here. Give me a thumbs up or a yes if what I just said makes sense if you were here. Yes. Okay. Awesome. So acknowledgement is the first one. Secondly, we talked about engagement. So the second step in emotional movement is engagement. And this involves actively engaging with our emotions. So it would look like, okay, stuff shows up in my body. I acknowledge, bring myself to neutrality in my center. I always put my hand on my heart, chest, and belly or solar plexus, the midriff of my body. And then I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to actively engage, right? So actively engaging looks like taking responsibility for how I'm feeling. That is the engagement part. Taking responsibility, which looks a lot like assuming, realizing what is awakening within. And the reason why the engagement phase is so important, I'm talking about the self here. We also can do this with others. First, we always work on ourselves. So the engagement piece is about really taking responsibility, because when we take responsibility for how we are feeling, that means, wow, okay, I'm realizing how I'm feeling and I'm taking responsibility for it, prevents us from pointing the finger at someone else and saying that they are making me feel a certain way. Super important. Other people, unless you are a child, do not have the power to make you feel any way unless you give them that power. So engagement in this context means to take responsibility for how you're feeling and going, wow, I'm super angry at this person. I'm full of rage. I can't believe what they just said. You are processing that emotion. It belongs to you. It doesn't belong to them. Make sense? Engage with yourself, taking responsibility. And in the same process, finally, we support ourselves. So you acknowledge it, it shows up, it arises, you decide, you choose to go to neutral, where you tap in and you acknowledge that you're feeling this way so that you are not overwhelmed and overcome by the emotion. It's a practice. Secondly, you engage, you take responsibility for how you are feeling. And finally, you move into support. And supporting looks like being able to navigate our own emotions. So it's being able to experience a safe space for ourselves as we are moving through the sensations of the emotions. Okay, so we become more nurturing to ourselves. That's the supporting piece. You basically say, it's okay. I accept how I'm feeling in this moment. I'm fine in this moment. And so you regulate how you are feeling. That's the support piece. You will become much better at navigating your emotions, okay? So this is the whole emotional movement process using my 3-step system. You acknowledge, engage with yourself, and you support yourself. Acceptance is also another word for supporting. You just accept what's going on in this moment. And acceptance doesn't mean that we can't change it. We certainly can change it. We're just not quite there yet. So very simply, acknowledgement, engagement, and support. And now finally, emotional movement. What arises when you are able to go through this 3-step system? Well, naturally, you can increase your emotional intelligence, right? If you're in touch with how you're feeling, naturally, your emotional IQ will rise. And the beauty about nurturing, cultivating emotional intelligence is that it gives you incredible benefits. I'm just going to name 4 today, just to get us started with the benefits of acknowledging, engaging, and supporting emotional movement through the body, which then raises your emotional IQ, emotional intelligence. And the benefits of that are increased self-awareness. Just take a moment right now to think of how our world would be different if everyone increased their self-awareness. And I'm talking a wide range here, from politicians, from how we run our hospital systems, how doctors are trained in Ivy League universities. I'm talking about the very big picture, because in those big pictures is where the trickle-down effect comes. So if there is a lack of self-awareness in those environments, it means that the emotional IQ is not as sharp or as high as it could be, because people are not practicing daily rituals to assist them in becoming more self-aware. When we acknowledge with our emotions, clearly we develop a deeper understanding of ourselves. And that's the most important thing. We become more aware of our emotional states. We're better able to identify our emotional triggers, our patterns, and our needs. So with this type of self-awareness, right, it allows us to manage our emotions clearly, much more effectively, which then results in making better decisions. We make better decisions based on recognizing our emotional states. So that's the first benefit of practicing this and increasing your emotional IQ. Does that make sense, everyone? So this is very specific in this context, and it's an ongoing practice and rituals. And I'm going to talk to you about a personal ritual at the end that is really fun and that I experienced when I was in the Amazon a few months ago, working with shamans. But let me continue with this. So increased self-awareness is a benefit of a increased emotional IQ. Secondly, this is super important, improves emotional regulation. If you are someone who tends to be emotional, and let's be honest, we're all emotional, which is great. That's part of being human. The only problem when it's not great is when it goes out of control. So if you learn of something that is devastating on any given day, it can really ruin that entire day or many days. If you are someone who has experienced some pretty significant trauma in their lives, and we've all experienced trauma. For some of us, however, we've had some much deeper traumas growing up, the environments in which we found ourselves. When we increase our emotional intelligence by practicing emotional movement in the 3-step system, you improve your capacity to regulate your emotions so that they do not take over the best of you. We become better equipped to regulate our emotional responses in difficult situations. And that is crucially important, because when we don't have a handle on regulating our emotions, I'm guessing that you know how quickly the downward spiral can occur. And I'm talking specifically here about the self. I'm not talking about so much external factors for the moment. For the self, do you have a pattern of self-sabotage? Do you have a pattern of self-sabotage? And self-sabotage is interesting because it shows up in different ways. It might be that inner voice that consistently tells you that you're not good enough. It could be you being an emotional eater. We eat to fill a void inside ourselves. It could be that we have a story around how we should be rewarding ourselves for a job well done. And the way we do that is to intake alcohol or, smoke a joint. And so there's that type of dysfunctional relationship to rewarding ourselves that is sifted, processed through our saboteur. And what happens consequently is that after you've had the food or you've had the joint or you've had the alcohol, you actually feel worse. Your negative self-talk makes you feel worse. This is a sign that you might be having a hard time regulating your emotions. So when we practice emotional movement from acknowledgement, engagement, taking 100% responsibility for our lives, and then supporting ourselves, accepting that this is how it is, just how it is, that actually helps us to increase emotional intelligence, which then helps us to regulate our emotions. Thirdly, increased emotional intelligence helps us with empathy. We become more empathic. And that's a really beautiful piece of information. This should make all of us feel better because empathy helps us to be kinder to ourselves first. And what happens when we reverse that mirror on ourselves and we become more connected to processing our emotions? The empathy that we feel for ourselves, meaning another word for that is forgiveness. We might forgive ourselves for our trespasses. Perhaps we were impatient with our aging parent. Perhaps we were unkind with a friend. Perhaps we spoke too loudly with our child. So empathy helps us to forgive ourselves for those patterns that we are so willing to improve upon. It doesn't help to blame ourselves. The blame shame game is completely useless. We want to move into a space of feeling more empathy for ourselves, forgiving ourselves. And as we do this, this is the most beautiful thing of all. This is the most important part of all in our neurobiological system, when we become more empathic towards ourselves, we naturally become more empathic towards others. And again, if you can imagine a world where we can be more empathic toward our neighbor, toward someone who doesn't think like us, if we can become more empathic toward what's going on in the world right now, in creating opportunities for people to feel heard and held, even if you don't agree. This is a huge sign of emotional intelligence. When we are not in ourselves, a fight, flight, freeze state, and when we don't respond to people in a reactive manner, we go back to we go back to managing our emotions, right? Being able to manage how we feel so that we don't spew out. So empathy is a huge sign of emotional intelligence. And finally, a really important one is that we get better at solving problems. When we have a higher level of emotional intelligence, we become better at solving problems. And that gives us a little bit of an up on our resiliency quotient. When we're better at resolving problems for ourselves, we become more resilient in general. And if you're someone who works with the public, if you're a caregiver, a practitioner, if you're a coach, but even in your own life with your family, your husbands, wives, partners, when we are able to problem solve for ourselves, that translates into heightened mindful communication. So instead of getting caught up and triggered into a response, the immediate response from our end becomes to be centered, to go back immediately into that state of neutrality. Do you see how helpful that can be? If you are in a state of neutrality, if you are someone on this planet who works with the public, you know how reactive people can be. We see it on social media all the time. How do you maintain a sense of internal health with your body? By practicing daily rituals, very simple, that help you to strengthen your immune system, your endocrine system, your fascial system. If you can increase your emotional intelligence by following these very simple steps, you will find yourself living a life where you're not stressed, you're not worried. You don't have to worry all the time. Worry is a choice. So by becoming a better problem solver, you actually can solve your own problem of being a worrier. What is that about? Oh, okay, let me do the 3-step system. Let me acknowledge, why am I worrying? Acknowledgement. What's this going on? I'm going to feel that in my body. And worry, a lot of the time will show up in the lower belly. It can show up in the chest, but also in the throat. How do we process worry? Or if you're working with a client, how do you assist them in processing worry or processing any type of emotion? I will tell you, I am more convinced than ever, and I have shared this with you before, that everything needs to be processed through the body in order for it to actually be processed. Otherwise, if it's coming from an intellectual perspective, it kind of stays in this quadrant right here. This is why the marriage of mindfulness and psychotherapy is so big right now, because all of these psychology platforms are discovering that talk therapy can only take us so far. And you know this because you might know people in your life who have been working with therapists for years. People will stay with psychotherapists for years, weekly. That is a lot of investment of time, energy, and money. So my invitation to you and to your loved ones and to whoever is around you is to start contemplating that to actually process emotion fully, We want to move it through our body, recognize sensations, and being able to process them from a place of acknowledgement, of engagement, and of support. Okay, I've said a big piece here. Does this make sense? Give me some comments, give me some feedback. Let me know if this is making sense to you. Are you tracking with me? Can you relate? Or is it really difficult to relate? You don't feel like you can relate. You've never heard of this before. It's out of your range. Give me some feedback about what you're hearing, how you are receiving it. And furthermore, might it be possible for you to integrate these tools into your own life? 3-step system: acknowledge, engage, support, and just kind of allow that to move through your consciousness and see when you are in exchange with another, if you actually could be proactive in activating the 3-step system. And I'm going to be talking more about this and breaking it down with more specificity over the coming weeks and actually over the coming months, because I am finding this to be so powerful in my own practice that it's giving me a sense of, it's given me a sense of confidence in a most beautiful way, where by practicing this over and over again, I am finding myself more alive, more enlivened. And the best part about it is that I'm not distracted and pulled out of my center by what's happening in the world. And, that's pretty amazing, because there's no need to run to the doctor or to get antibiotics or to rush for medication. I am trusting my own internal laboratory of intelligence. And this 3-step system is really assisting me in also working much more effectively with my clients so that I can invite them into the experience of it. So acknowledge, engage, support, you'll notice, are action verbs. Right? They're verbs, they're action-based. And that's my whole spiel: to be in movement, emotional movement in particular, with today's class. Leanne says, it does make sense. It takes practice and we have to be gentle. It's not a straight line. Be patient, and little by little, the steps will become habits. Awesome. Thank you, Leanne. That's exactly right. It's a practice. We want to move into practice. Everything is a practice. Going to the gym is a practice. Lifting weights is a practice. Eating more healthily is a practice. This whole journey of life is a practice. I'm inviting you into stepping into the next possibility for you to live a more aligned, fulfilled, peaceful life, so that you might deal also with potential traumas from your past, from things that are still sticking to your ribs, from stories that you tell yourselves today that are still alive, even though you know logically that they're not. Stories, negative stories that are in your mind, need to be processed through the body. There's a somatic therapeutic dialogue in the work that I do that helps support you address, acknowledge, and move through these emotions through the body. You would not believe how freeing it is to be able to process this information. And a lot of it, my friends, is subconscious. So I wanted to end our session today, and I want to talk to you about my earrings. I've worn I love orange, and I wanted to share with you a little story. I got these earrings in the Amazon. The Achuar people make them, and I bought these some time ago when I was in the Amazon working with some shamans. And I wanted to share a story with you that relates to emotional movement. And the earrings were my reminder to share this with you. And the experience that I had, which for your information, Leanne, in particular, because of your response, the practice, we had daily rituals that we were doing. And one of the daily rituals that we did was to meet together with a shaman every morning at 4:30 a.m. And we would go to his hut, to his place, and he would hold space for our group. It was a small group. We were separated in different groups. There was about maybe 6 or 7 of us. And we would meet him at his hut every morning at 4:30 a.m. And he would actually prepare a tea, a Wayusa tea, that is from the holly tree that is found in the Amazon. Wayusa tea. And we would all ritualistically drink the tea while his wife would nurture and feed the fire. And rather impressively, I would add, it was a very interesting experience to have and see this, where for them, this is a daily ritual that they do over and over again. So a few of us would gather in his hut, and we would all drink the Huayusa tea, all of us. It's a very pleasant tasting tea. And what that tea was meant to do was to assist us in remembering our dreams from the night before. And a very interesting thing happened to all of us while we were there it was in Ecuador, in the Ecuadorian Amazon. We all remembered our dreams rather vividly. So the energy, of course, of the rainforest, right, of being out in nature, of being out of electromagnetic fields for the most part. There was no internet, there was no being on our phones. We were truly in the depth of the forest. And somehow our dream time became more enlivened. And what happened when we were there in the morning with our Wayusa tea and we're sharing, right, our dream time, because the shaman would ask us, who would like to share? And everyone had an opportunity to share. And it was so interesting to witness the depth of people's dreams. Very powerful, some of them very troubling dreams. A lot showed up. And this happens because, of course, we are in a mostly undisturbed space. We're not distracted by the outside world or our social media or our phones or any of that. And so therefore, the nervous system has a chance to regulate to the level where your subconscious is able to be heard through your dream time. So we're drinking our Wayusa tea and we start to share our dream time stories. And why I'm sharing this story with you in relationship to emotional movement is because in the storytelling, in the circle, in the sacred circle of connection, of creation, like we're in right now, there is something that happens where we are encouraged, embraced, invited into sharing. And in this particular context, being around the fire with this shaman, we shared our dreams and many strong emotions arose. And what they say is that part of it is the strength and the power of the Wayusa tea that really gets us, goes deeper than the physical body. It goes into the subconscious. And what started to happen is that as we were sharing our dreams, we were processing deep, profound emotion that had been forgotten, essentially, because it was locked in our subconscious. And so the fact that he was holding space, we were all holding space for one another. We were intaking this amazing tea. His wife was feeding the fire. There was so much happening in a very silent 4:30 a.m. before the sun rose environment. The magic, the purity, the silence of the morning. It was so magnificent what we were able to process, and all of us processed it through the body. We cried, we laughed, We admitted that we were scared. We didn't know what was going on. All these types of emotions arose within us, and it was the most beautiful experience having us process emotionally, letting go through the sharing, through the storytelling, through the mindful communication held in a group of support and love. That's emotional movement. We moved the emotions through our body in a circle, as we are somewhat doing here, what I am inviting you into. And so the reason I wanted to share this with you is so that you might go back in your own rainforest, in your home, in your office, in your life, with your friends, with your family. Take the time to sit in circle, share stories. It might not be in the same way that I did in terms of the dream time, or it could be. However, a super important component to healing, to being able to process and move emotion through the body, is in sharing in safe circles where you are acknowledged, where you are being engaged, and where you are supported. I'm reading the comments here. Leanne says, I have a question. Maybe it can be a subject for another video. I wonder, is what we eat affect our way to manage emotions? Oh my God, 100%, Leanne. Everything that you eat is a way to manage your emotions. Everything that you put in your mouth has to do with how you process emotion. Yes, and I will do a talk on this. Thank you. Thank you so much for asking the question. Sabi says, the experience in the hut must have been beautiful. Thanks so much for sharing about the dreams and Wayusati. I feel very connected to dreams and these times. I do want to work with them. Awesome. Sabi, you can actually purchase Wayusati online, and you spelled it correctly, obviously. You can actually purchase it. It's a product of Ecuador. Specifically, they get it from the holly tree in the Amazon forest. Maybe look it up and see if you can have some. I still have some from Ecuador that I brought back with me. Leanne says, what a beautiful, interesting experience indeed, Sabi. I went to a yoga retreat in nature recently and felt the quality of my dreams was even clearer. Yes, absolutely. It also happens when I participate in deep workshops, working, for instance, on my genealogy. Yes, I can imagine, because you have quite an interesting genealogy. Thank you for sharing that. Sabi says, I do feel that the environment influences so much the way we remember the dreams and the way we clean the inner lake, subconscious. Beautiful. Sharing and writing about it too. P.S. Great idea of theme for other talks, Julianne. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for your comments and engaging. We're getting to the end of our class for today. I want to thank you all so deeply for being here with me. I want to invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you have not yet. Invite your friends, your clients, your patients, your family who might want to learn these easy, simple steps into becoming more aligned, becoming more connected to themselves. Have them peruse through my YouTube channel. I have tons of videos. And stay tuned. I'm going to start in a couple of weeks. I'll be advertising. It's my first 4-month immersive online program. I'm teaching a mind-body alignment program from September 6th to December 20th of this year. And I'm opening the program with this beautiful 4-day retreat at a monastery in Quebec City. It's going to be quite beautiful. I have a few special invited guests that are going to be teaching with me, all in the world of mind-body alignment and somatics. And also our coaches, Bini Sun, who's here with us today. She is one of our Duchêne Method coaches. She is going to be part of the mind-body alignment program. She'll be supporting you as a student, if you decide to join us, as a guide. So Sabi will be there guiding you. Henry will also be there. And there are a couple of other guides that have gone through my coaching program that will be there to support you. So to look out for that. And in the meantime, please continue to write your daily gratitudes at the Duchêne Method Facebook group page. I'm going to write mine this morning. Thank you so much for being here. I hope to see you again next week. If you have any questions, comments, please reach out to me either on my Facebook page, here on YouTube. You can write a comment. The more people sign up and subscribe, the more the algorithm kicks in and the more people I can reach, which is my goal this year. I would love to be able to share this information gratuitously. This is free information, free classes to people who really are serious about tapping in, learning about their internal systems, musculoskeletal, fascial, endocrine, lymphatic, cardiovascular, respiratory, to really come into connection with this beautiful laboratory that is our body. Thank you so much, all of you. Much love to everyone. Have a wonderful day.